Very many aged people are invisible.
It's very difficult to accept that you're aging.
When people are isolated, their only companion becomes a TV.
How does love evolve with age, both romantically and within family?
Elderly people are just like every age group. They love love.
A lot of mothers, even in our Arabic societies, the mother's guilt trip.
They're never satisfied. It's never enough. This does not mean that one cuts one's parent off.
How can parents find new purpose beyond their kids?
A younger generation, to help their parent, they also have to set boundaries for themselves, but also for the parent.
So I finally got to see, I have the privilege of sitting with Elaine, which you don't have, sorry, but I do. She's my mother's mentor and friend, and me and my mother have always pushed each other that we need to use her brain as much as we can and her knowledge and her wisdom. So I'm so happy that I finally got to share you with the world. But we did one part about aging, which Elaine thought is a very important topic that maybe we don't talk about enough, whether us having, elder parents or grandparents or friends, and vice versa. The elderly who don't know how to express what they're going through. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did. I
Good.
really did.
Thank you. So, as always, if you haven't subscribed, please do. Always support us, and we will support you back by giving you great minds and great stories. So thank you and enjoy. Hey Elaine.
Hello, Ennis.
How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Or should I say, how are you really doing?
Actually, I'm really doing very well
Okay.
these days, yes.
That's really nice to hear.
Yeah.
What defines well?
Well, for me, I'm very fortunate that I have good health. And I am enjoying very much my life. I love the arts in New York, and I have my family here, and life is good.
That's good. So you have a very interesting topic, and also, the team member that did the research, and she's very young, she's Gen Z, and she goes, "Oh, aging, that's a topic I want to listen to." So the first question is, why do you want to talk about aging?
I believe that there's been a lot of study and a lot of emphasis on different stages of life, adolescence and early adulthood, and, all the millions of books that are written about how to succeed in your career and such things as that. But there's been very little study done about people who have reached, we'll say, 75 years or over.
Right.
And because there's many more of us than there used to be, we're taking up a lot of space in the world, but I don't think we're very well understood as in terms of what this stage of life really means.
Okay. So I have some really good questions, and of course, anything that you want to add, maybe I miss. One of the questions, why is letting go so emotionally challenging for some parents when they grow old?
I think that's a fabulous question. I think that in traditional life, where many mothers devoted their life work to raising their children, especially mothers, when that sort of comes to an end and the children are grown and gone off and have their own lives, this leaves the mother purposeless. And so she clings because she doesn't know what to do with her life after children. Many times people have neglected their own, as they've raised children, they've neglected their own sort of well-being in that they've not developed other interests. They maybe sometimes even haven't developed a good social life outside of their family because they've completely devoted themselves to that one thing. So for many parents, children is what gave them meaning in life, and to lose that is to lose so much. So parents struggle with letting their kids go because they have a void they can't fill.
Is it what they call the empty nest?
Yes, it's the empty nest, where like, I think there's a difference between men and women. I think for many men, as they age, they sometimes are no longer in the work they used to do. And so they too don't know what quite their purpose is. So they kind of turn to their kids. And mothers also, the empty is the right word, is that there's a void and they don't know how to fill the void.
So today you want to kind of address this. I don't even want to call it elephant in the room because I don't think people realize there is an elephant also. It's the aging topic is just not sexy or trendy enough, unfortunately, but it's a thing, a very big thing.
It's a very big thing. And, there's a difference. I mean, aging is inevitable. I mean, we're going to be a different age tomorrow, both of us. So aging can't be avoided. What can be avoided is the quality of life that you can live as you age. And, we do have choices about how we look after our health as best as we can, how we create a quality of life so that we are not just clinging to our children. So we have choices to make, but because there's very few guidelines in societies about what to do with yourself when you're old, people kind of don't know quite what to do with it. And I think that it's important now that we begin to talk about how intergenerationally people your age can help their parents build a good life, encourage them to have a good life, and how aged people themselves have to take responsibility for finding how to live a quality life. Health issues, of course, can come at any time in life, but they're pretty well inevitable when you are aged. Meaning, there are the chances of having a chronic illness become far greater. And so that all has to be managed. And that, when people start to have health issues, so to speak, they become frightened. And when they're frightened, they go back to clinging to their children. It takes a lot of courage to face into some of the health issues that one has to face into in older years.
I have a weird question maybe. We keep talking about children. What if somebody's growing old but doesn't have kids?
I have many, many friends who don't have children. And they have to work twice as hard at making sure that they have a circle of people in their lives that are there for them. And and many people start to look to nieces and nephews. They start to look to younger siblings. The fear of aloneness as one ages is a big issue. And this aloneness is made more poignant, actually, because also as one ages, there's many deaths. Like I myself had 7 close people die, friends of mine die last year. So that is a lot of loss to deal with. The way that one has to learn to do that is to remain with people who understand what all this is. So it's very important to have good peers, because one can't expect that a younger generation can even contemplate what this could mean, losing 6 people in a year. But that's just reality for people who are aging. And so, it's very important to have peers who are where you're all on the same page. And I'll tell you that in many ways, when older people meet, they start with the organ recital. You know what the organ recital is?
No.
Well, my knee hurts and I had to see the eye doctor, and I've now been told I've got to see a cardiologist, and that's the organ recital. One starts at the head and moves down, so to speak. And we all laugh as we all do it. Pretty well every time we meet, we have an organ recital. And then we move on to really deeply discussing all of our friendships that are shifting, where we talk about what people are facing. We figure out how to support those people. There's a lot of, in my world, I'm usually supporting about 6 or 8 people who are going through chronic illness issues or recent loss of spouses, good friends, sister, all of that kind of stuff. It's not an age for the faint of heart.
Did you did you have to go through a certain challenge or a battle yourself with your own aging, and that's what gave you the highlight, or were you already prepped for it? Because we're talking about it because most people are not prepped for it, or not acquainted with their idea, or don't understand it when somebody reaches that. But as Elaine, did you have to go through the struggle to figure out that this needs awareness, or you knew it was coming and you prepared for it?
I had the privilege of, my mother only passed away is about 8-9 months ago, and she was 101. I learned a lot from her about what this looks like. I was a good observer and a good listener as she went through her 80s and 90s. And I tried to hear what she was experiencing. So I learned a lot from her. And I think she was my major role model for even really becoming deeply interested in how do you do this. My mother aged very elegantly.
Nice.
In that she had many, many serious problems. She was blind, she was immobile, but she never lost her sense of humor for 2 minutes. And she very much stayed a part of the world, which is not easy to do when you're homebound and blind. So she taught me a lot of good lessons.
Okay. So this is a question that comes with a statistic. The question is, how common is depression in older adults? It's funny that we never think of that. Because you think of depression like when people are young or after a first marriage or whatnot, or getting fired or heartbroken. But I've never really, personally, never really thought how common is depression in older people. And I read the stat that said that this is a general statistic by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, that 7 million American adults over the age of 65 experience depression each year. The CDC also reports that adults over the age of 65 made up 16% of all suicide deaths in 2004. This is really shocking to read. I don't think anybody thought of it.
Well, I think there's so many elements to this. One is if one is prone to depression, definitely as one's ages, the serotonin levels and dopamine levels deteriorate. So then you're more prone physiologically. Secondly, people are facing so much grief, loss of jobs, loss of a career, end of a career, loss of their children, meaning their children have gone off somewhere, loss of friends, and loss of their health. And
spouse.
And spouses, of course, yeah. So there's so much loss that the depression, which is a part of grieving, and I think that, in earlier life, sometimes when people are depressed, they're irritable, they're angry, they're grouchy, et cetera, et cetera. But as people age and they're more isolated, they often kind of just withdraw into themselves. And for sure, for many men at this stage, it's very difficult for them to speak of how they feel. They feel that, they already feel useless, and now they feel weak on top of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to help people because they won't admit to their doctors, they won't admit to sometimes their kids. I have a friend who is deeply, deeply depressed, but she will not say a word to her children about it because she doesn't want to burden them with it. I admire that to some extent, but I don't like the fact that she also won't tell her doctor because she's not helping anybody, including herself. Also, there's, because many people have chronic illness, they deal with a higher level of physical pain. And that wears you down, for sure. And so that too is something that people, the depression comes because the pain is relentless. And one feels very helpless against it. So the statistic doesn't surprise me in any way at all. It's more surprising. It's more the question is how does one not get depressed? What do you have to do to avoid depression? Because there's lots and lots of elements in this part of life that definitely drive you in that direction. Yeah, I think that physically, a person is changing. Socially, their life is changing. And then we have to say, too, that very many aged people are invisible. They are not seen in society as being useful. And for people who have led a big, full life, some people can adjust to this invisibility, and some people do not adjust well at all.
I can only imagine. It's kind of like, you know, these professional athletes or models that are professional, their careers are short and they're used to a high spike of attention and recognition, and then when they stop playing the sport, you fast forward 4 or 5 years, nobody talks about them anymore, and the new generation doesn't even know that they were athletes at some point.
Exactly.
And I feel sometimes age is like that, but maybe on a longer time span, where you could have been this very important CEO or manager or whatever, or a great father. Now you're just that weak guy that's always complaining.
Mm-hmm. Doing the organ recital.
Yeah. So it's scary. It feels very lonely. You said something that I'm sure as people are listening, they wanted to know. You said the question is how you don't get depressed. So how?
Well, I think first of all, one has to accept that that one is aging. That the drive to stay young, to be young when you're not young, is a kind of crazy making. That doesn't mean to say one can't attempt to, look nice or
use Botox
or do whatever, or keep your body fit and things like that. But nonetheless, it happens to you whether you like. So you have to, first of all, you have to be able to accept that this is a stage of life and there is no avoiding it. I mean, you might be able to avoid it 5 years longer than but if one makes it to, say, 90, you can't avoid it. It's there.
But you know, Elaine, like the industry is extremely based today on longevity and age and biohacking. So it's from the ice baths to the medical supplements to do this to look younger and put this filter. So the whole industry has tapped into this huge money-making part, and it plays on the fear of people aging. Like I meet, even sometimes in our work, we meet the younger generation, and females are getting Botox at 16, 18, 20, 21, with the idea that you should have it now, so your wrinkles after 30 years don't show. I'm like, who's telling you this? Based on what research? Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but it's funny how that's what they all repeat. You do it now, so that later, okay, you don't even know you're going to live, you don't know how you look like at a certain age. So the only question is, if the whole industry is playing on it because they know that we're afraid of aging, it's very difficult to do what you just said, is to accept that you're aging.
Yes, I mean, you're fighting against an entire cultural norm that says young is good and old is bad. So you're right. It's definitely an uphill battle to accept, and none of us get it totally right. But at least moving towards acceptance, and then in that, one has to reinvent their life. You can't sort of be what you were before. You have to be something different now. And that something different means taking a lot of responsibility and a lot of hard thinking about how to recreate a life that may only be 5 years, or might be, I'm 82. If I might have 5 years, I might have 2 years, but I might have 18 because I might live as long as my mother did. So, it's hard to make a plan, but nonetheless, one has to try to make a plan. And in order to say, I can only have a quality of life if I make choices that are quality, because what my quality might not be the same as somebody else. But we do know for sure that one of the really significant things right across the board in every culture is socialization is absolutely imperative. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to socialize with different ages, then you've got a big bonus right there. So, you know, in your community where families live pretty close together, and the people have the opportunity to know the grandchildren, to know their children, to know their children's friends, to have friends of different ages. This is really important. And then you have to have your peer group, because they're going to be your sort of, they're going to be the ones that truly get what this is all about. So big socialization is important. Another thing I think is to take seriously that the body wears out. There's just no question about that. However, one doesn't have to help it along. You know, the more that, you know, like for instance, I'm a crazy person about Pilates, and that's mostly because I want to stay very balanced, because falling for older people leads to disaster. And so balance and strength and being able to get down on the floor and get back up, these are very important things to try to maintain. And so that adds to the quality of your life. If you can do all those things and you don't need help and things like that. If you don't make those choices, you become very dependent. And nobody's happy about that. The person that you're depending on is not that happy, and neither are you, because you're not a child. This is not like you're going back to childhood, even though sometimes the whining and moaning sounds like it, but
there are these cartoons that show how, you know, you start as a baby, you become old, but then you start to act like a child. Those are the end of your life.
You know what? A lot of times people have never been given the tools to really take responsibility to build their life. They've been dependent on other people to make those decisions for them. So why would we think that they suddenly become 75 or 80 and they suddenly know how to do these things? These are skills. They're not something you just, you know, that they can pick up just out of nowhere. So to some extent, there are elderly people who do act very much like a small child, and they whine and moan and throw temper tantrums, and it's not a good situation at all. But the crazy part about it is they're not a child. They're fearful, they're lonely, and there's still hope. And maybe for some, they're still hoping somebody will decide what to do about it all.
Okay. We go to a subtopic. How does love evolve with age, both romantically and within family? I like this question.
How does love
evolve? Both romantically and with family, or within family, with age. Because I've had also one of my guests said the popular answer, popular that it worked, like a lot of people connected to it. And he was or is married for a bunch of years, and I asked him in ABtalks, like, how do married people stay married for that long? And he said one of the nice ways that he looked at it is they keep falling in love with each other with the new versions of themselves. So that was a very interesting take, because we change a lot.
Yes, of course.
And sometimes you change into a person that's not compatible anymore. Maybe you were for 3-4 years, but now you're a different person, they're a different person, and you just don't get along as much. So that was a nice answer about how love's supposed to evolve. But I like that this question is about the romantic side and the family, because I guess it also evolves in a different way.
Yes, it does, yeah. I think from a romantic standpoint, elderly people are just like every other age group is they love. And people really enjoy having a relationship. Though many people have a period where, maybe they've lost a spouse, and they say to themselves, "Oh, that's enough of that then. I'm finished." And it is more difficult to maybe find a good partner if you've lost your original spouse. If you're fortunate enough to have the spouse that you had in other stages of life, you're so adjusted to each other that at some level, things that irritated you forgot about. So, because people who have been married for a very long time know which fights to pick, and they're very few. It just isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. So you don't bother with it.
So why do people fight more when they're young? Is it ego? Is it pride?
Power. It's a power struggle. When you're young, it's about, who's going to tell who, and who's the boss in this place, and many things like that. The power struggle between couples is probably one of it's an enormously important part of the relationship, but it's the most difficult one to navigate. For couples who have been together for many years, it's settled. There's a peace. There's a truce.
An acceptance.
There's a peace truce, and you just go with it. And you might say like, "Oh," but that's all you say. And then you move on. But if you've lost your spouse, it's quite difficult for older people to meet another partner, though it does happen. And many people now choose to do what's called, they keep two separate homes, because they know they don't want to navigate the power struggle. They don't want to navigate any of it. They want to just have a nice companion and someone that they enjoy intimacy with. And then everybody goes home, and then it's a lot easier.
But the question is, should young couples do that too?
I don't know.
That's a big dilemma. Once I asked on, this is a few years ago, I asked on Instagram, and I said something along the lines that, in the olden days, when a couple had enough money, you would find, even in the soap operas, the wife goes to her quarters and the husband goes to his quarters. Absolutely. And sometimes they sleep over.
Yes.
And so my question, it was a bit funny. It was like, do you believe if you're in a marriage, you should be sleeping on the same bed or two separate beds, like two different bedrooms? And my question was out of like a pragmatic question, like if one snores, why do you have to force yourself to sleep? And why do you need one blanket? You can buy two blankets. It was a very logical, typical NS challenge of why do you need one blanket and you're fighting over it, and one has to wake up at 6, but the other has to sleep for their late shift. So it didn't make sense. And the answers were really interesting. Like a lot of people thought, young people, that you should have two separate bedrooms. Some people, two separate houses, two separate apartments, and and I was like, okay. And I was thinking, is that one of the main issues? I don't want to sound so unromantic, because there is a beauty of sharing a bed with somebody you love, I guess, but should it be on a daily basis or on the weekend when you can actually breathe and you don't have to wake up for work, And I wonder how many fights come out of that, and how many irritants because somebody woke you up and you have a big long day the next day. When you said that they take two separate houses but they are still companions, I'm like, should the younger couples learn from that,
Well, and the other reason that older people do this is that if they have had relationships before, generally they've gone through a caregiving process, and they've gone through the dying process with their spouse. And lots of people say, I don't want to sign up for that twice. Because there is a lot of caregiving that has to go on in as one ages, with one's spouse, often with one's siblings. There's a fair amount of caregiving that has to happen, and so people who are really thinking say, how much am I willing to take on and what I'm not willing to take on.
Because it's also burdening.
Yes, it is.
No matter how proud you are of helping another, it's
absolutely. And long-term caregiving for older couples is very often the surviving spouse comes away from the caregiving with massive health issues and often passes away not very long after.
Because they've neglected themselves?
Yeah, because they've neglected themselves, yeah.
So the second part of the question, which was, how does love evolve within the family?
I think within the family, culture plays a big part in this. In the Western world, where so much is thought that individualism, people that as a mother, I will be, I will love you because you've gone off and been a big success in wherever. So because there's this belief that everybody should go off, the Western societies are they have less expectation that their children will take them to the doctor, be there to play cards with them, et cetera, et cetera. But in the Middle Eastern culture, this is a whole entire different matter. And I think that, so intergenerationally, there is a time, I think, where the child has to decide that, how much can I parent my parent? What am I willing to do to parent my parent? Meaning, take them to the doctor and do this and do that and, entertain them and all of that kind of stuff. This is a big question that I think many people in your society are debating and struggling with at this point. It's a very hard struggle. Meantime, the elderly people who had every expectation that they would be an integral part of the family, that they would be looked after, that they would, be really an important part of the family still. And when that is somewhat less than that, you have some very complaining parents. I don't know whether I should say more mothers that complain. I'm not really sure. I think many fathers also probably feel very bereft, but they don't say as much. Mothers say a lot, as Arab mothers do. And so I think what needs to evolve is really open discussions between the generations about the fact that life has changed and that, what they might have done for their parents isn't really realistic now. However, I think, the younger generation, the more they know what their parent is facing, what kind of loneliness they're facing, what are the real health issues? Are they depressed? Are they bored? The more you know what the real problem is, then that gives that child an opportunity to say, okay, now let's see, what can we do to fix this? Like fix it a little bit, help them fix it. So one mother One mother might be somebody that you could say, okay, we have to set up that you go and have tea every second day with somebody in the family. That's it, we're setting that up. That might work for somebody. Somebody else wouldn't work at all. But it has to individually be thought out, because one can assume that the parent is bored, lonely, possibly a little bit depressed, fearful because of health issues. And so if you can start with the basis that, okay, those are the givens. But what are we going to, how can we help that person navigate that? Not like raising a child, but to figure out, how to get them to re-pick up an interest that they might have put down. How to get them to staying socialized. That's the key piece, staying socialized. And not with the kid, not with just their children, but with a larger group. You know how they say it takes a village to raise a child? Well, it takes a village to help an older person move towards death.
I love that. It seems, Elaine, a lot of if I simplify it, I have a theory that all relationships, all kinds, employee, boss, lover, a brother, sister, anything. You have issues, in my opinion, in any relationship when the relationships are misaligned. So the boss expects you to work 6 hours overtime. You're a person who likes to finish on time. Fight. Your partner thinks you should always check on them while they're at work. You're not used to it, so you don't. But because the expectations are so different, and nobody's even talking about it, you have continuous clashes. This leads me to the point I wanted to mention. From what you're saying, it seems a lot of it is just a simple matter of communication.
Absolutely.
Where you sit with your parent and you say, I know you're scared, I know this is very weird and different and you're not used to this. You used to work 9 hours a day, now you're not. So what can we do? And then maybe the child can say, listen, Dad, my shift is very demanding, but you know what? Friday afternoon I can come and see you, and Sunday I can take you to your friends, for example. Now the expectation is clear. So the father is not assuming, or the mother, where are you today? Yeah. No, we know. He said Friday, Sunday, okay. And I think that's so important. When it's vague, she's like, so why are you even busy today? Because today I have a meeting. Then the next week she can call him the same day, because you're not aligning.
I think that's exactly a very, very important point. And it also brings to the point where intergenerationally, for a younger generation to help their parent, they also have to set boundaries for themselves, but also for the parent. Because if the parent has expectations that are not realistic, then everybody's just fed up with the whole thing. And but the child also has to really take responsibility to say that that for doing what they say they will do, but also not just being the only person there, but to try to brainstorm with the elder person about, like, what else could you do? I mean, what would be fun to do? What would be interesting for you to do? Like, I'll just give you an example. The other day, my daughter said, did you hear that there's this book club at McNally Jackson, which is a bookstore? I said, I never heard of it. Well, anyway, I went over there and joined this book club. Well, my gosh, what a good treat that was, because there was 10 people discussing a book that we all read, and they were from all age groups and all kinds of different backgrounds. Well, that was a very stimulating evening. Now, did I think of that myself? No, but just as I say, it's not just sort of saying, okay, I'll be there on Fridays or on this and that day, but to actually say, like, what are you doing with yourself on Tuesday night? And the difficulty that happens is that when people are isolated, meaning they're living by themselves, their only companion becomes a TV. And way too many older people, they don't actually, in my experience anyway, they don't really watch TV. It's their friend in the room. And, but they're not stupid, and it's not much of a friend. So, how to help people not just spend their whole time watching TV or spending their whole time sleeping more and more and more and more, because life is boring. So it takes good brainstorming, good imaginative thinking to build a quality of life. Takes the older person has to do it, but and their kids and the people who care about them can make such a good impact, because they can give them hints that they might not have thought of. Things like that.
Okay. Why do some people prefer not to talk about aging at all?
Aging is such a funny word, because we're all doing that. So I don't know what. But a lot of people do not want to talk about the process of dying. And they certainly do not want to talk about death. Now, these are two different things, death and the process of dying. Because human beings fight for life. This is just a natural instinct. And so to actually face into things like the process of dying, which happens when you have health conditions that are irreversible. This is very, very frightening for a lot of people. It takes enormous courage to face into those kinds of things. And, and in lots of cultures, it's more like, let's not talk about that. Let's pretend that didn't even get it. Are you ill? Oh, definitely not.
Elaine, it's also, I'm a bit too direct, so I always still ask. But a lot of women don't like when you say, so how are you? How old are you now? They're like, you don't ask a woman that. But for me, it's a celebration. Like, there's one way to look at age, like your level, rather than, oh, I'm older, which you are technically older, but you could say, I'm 43, I'm level 43, if you really want to play with your words. But I noticed it goes really, like, it could be in somebody in her 20s, and she gets offended that you say, how old are you?
Well, it is a youth culture all over the world. And so the question implies that there's a question mark about, if the person fears that they look older than they are, then they automatically, their brain goes to, he thinks I look 40 when I'm really only 35, or, whatever it is. And we have this idea that if your skin is smooth and you have good posture and you're slim and you're this and that and the other thing, that this automatically keeps you in the young category. Well, you can smooth out your skin all you darn like. That in the end, you're your age and you are what you are, what you are. I mean, it's always a big, like it's a question even with cosmetic surgeons when they will say to somebody, "This is ridiculous." There are people. I mean, I had a friend who had a facelift at 87. Okay. But just when I think about that example, this woman's entire life was based on her beauty. Her entire life was, her purpose in her life was to be beautiful. So you can imagine how much she was not willing to give that up.
Difficult.
Yeah, very difficult. And then she told me, what an idiot I am. I mean, I didn't have an opinion about it, but it
or
seemed,
you do, but you kept it to yourself.
yeah, I didn't say a thing about it because, you know, she risked, she had surgery. She risked her health in order to have smoother face skin. And so I think that when people who are older are so invested in what it was they were, what it really means is that they will not let themselves become a new person, a different person, somebody with a different perspective, somebody with different set of knowledge. They won't let themselves grow.
And you see that a lot with celebrities, because they were known for their
exactly
looks and their acting and whatnot, and then when they stop doing it, you see how much they just do surgery after surgery, and that's just a sign that you're not accepting the present. You want any glimpse of the past.
Yeah, and you know, it's not that I don't think people should. I think it's, if something makes you feel better about yourself and all of that, I'm not against any of that. However, if you're trying to tell yourself you can outrun this, it's an illusion. And there might be a day when we have a diagnosis that's called the illusion of youth. I don't know.
Maybe. Are aging parents often misunderstood by their own families?
I don't know for sure. I would say there is a lot of miscommunication between generations, and especially right now, because the generations lived in very different worlds. You know, people your age and younger than you have lived in a world that, quite frankly, did not exist when I was your age. And so there is a lot of miscommunication. I think there are older people who are having a very hard time accepting this kind of new world. And there are a lot of children who actually don't want to hear about that old world. They just don't want to hear about it at all. And because they're sort of saying, we're just getting rid of that. We don't. So I think, yes, there is a lot of miscommunication between generations. And, you know, another responsibility that aging people have to take on is, how much am I going to keep up? Like, is it really okay for somebody in their 80s not to know how to work an iPhone? No, it is not acceptable. You have to, you know, can you do all sorts of fancy things that you guys know how to do? And well, don't need to do that, but we need to keep up somewhat. It's our responsibility to do that, because what? Do we expect you to come back to our world? No, that's not reasonable. But on the other hand, I always think that there's a very nice thing that happens, that a lot of grandchildren, at least my grandchild, is so helpful in this department, and she's very pleased when she knows way more than I do.
Okay. How can parents find new purpose beyond their kids? I know what you mentioned about the socializing, but I want to focus on the word purpose, because I think everything else is under that umbrella. Like you said, something like reinventing yourself or repurposing yourself.
Yes, and again, this is not, there's not just one nice little answer, but the aging person needs to say, shall I take my skill base and do something different with it? I don't need to make money. I don't have to go to the office. I don't have to do, I don't have to run a business. I don't have to do anything. But I have a skill base. And what shall I do with that? So that's a big question that I think, and most really happy older people have really figured that out.
Nice.
They know what their skill base is, and they try to find a place in the world where it's useful. So I think that can give you back some sense of purpose, and also keeps you from becoming totally invisible, and keeps you socialized, because usually it's got something to do with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the main thing, is to really own what you own, and then figure out how to use it in a new way.
My last question for our first segment, or our first part, is what do parents wish their adult children could understand about aging?
Again, I'm not sure I can speak for everybody, but I would say that there are adult children who say, "You're fine," and meaning the adult children don't want to see their parent aged. They don't want to see them that way. They want to see them as they've always seen them. And so anything that's a bit diminished is like, oof, you have to push that away as fast. So one thing I think is that it's helpful if adult children can actually accept that 80 is not 60, 90 is not 70. It is what it is. And another thing I suppose is that we need good, fresh brains to help us to do this reinvention. Because we are fighting against grief, and it's very easy to sort of just fall into a pit of, sadness and grief, and so if an adult child can kind of acknowledge that we're grieving, but on the other hand, don't get stuck, because what's that going to do? And this is a part of this age. The losses that I experienced last year, okay, that's last year. There's lots to come, lots and lots. And so if my kids can understand that there is a lot of loss at this stage of life, and it's nobody's fault, and nobody did anything wrong, but it just is what it is. That's helpful, just for me to know that they know that, and that that's my reality. It's my responsibility to deal with it. It's not theirs. Not their responsibility to figure out how to grieve. I have to figure that out. But it is helpful, just like in any other grieving situation, when you have children that are able to say, this is tough. This is a tough stage. And, you know, and I know that that it's hard, but it's doable. And I think that children know where their parents' strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And if children can help their parents refine their strength, that's terribly useful.
There are two questions that popped up in my head, so I'm going to be greedy. The first one is a lot of mothers, even in our Arabic societies, because maybe in our Arabic societies, in my opinion, definitely more, just because of how close-knit the families are and how often you visit and how often you're expected to call and check on, and there's a lot of dependency and a lot of intertwining of families. A lot of mothers, I think more than fathers, because maybe the fathers don't like to express even if they feel it, the mothers guilt trip all the time. They make their kids feel like, oh, you forgot me, you don't know how much I worked for you, I carried you, I fed you, I took you to school, and look at you now. It's always this guilt and shame. It's a lot of shaming and a lot of guilt. And I really want to address this because it's such an important topic and it's a burden. You see these young, some of them really good guys and good women that are actually good to their parents. I'm not talking about that, the ones that are not good. That's a bad topic and that needs to be fixed. But the ones that are actually good, I feel they get more abuse because the rebel already has always been a rebel. Nobody's expecting much out of them. The good one, who's always been attentive and responsible, is the one who gets abused because the mother or the father, but I would say more the mother, knows very well if she makes him feel bad, he's going to act and he'll give her negative attention. And so this is a very, I find it toxic or unhealthy relationship where the mother is not being so raw and honest and vulnerable about what she's actually feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's using a very negative tool like a tantrum to make him feel bad. And now he is going to probably come to you, but not with pleasure.
No.
And I think that's really, it's not nice. So I think, and I don't like seeing these, I don't like knowing that these parents are, you know, lonely, but I also don't like the abuse they're giving to their kids that are actually nice and have been trying to help. And now this man is not attending to his kids, to his wife, to his job, because he's like, look at this again. She calls out of nowhere. I have to drop everything and go bring her bread. And you're like, bread? You see what I mean?
Yes, yes. And I know that this can be the case for sure. Lots of emotional blackmail and lots of guilt tripping and shaming and things like that have been a part of family dynamics from the start. And if it works, it keeps going. So, you know, I feel that the adult child is not really doing anybody a favor, himself or herself, or the mother really, to completely fall into this trap over and over and over again. In fact, it doesn't really serve the mother as well as it looks like it, because she's, in fact, in a way, she's begging the whole time. It's humiliating. It's and it is toxic. So really, I would say that the adult child has to make hard decisions about what is really helpful and what is just being blackmailed into doing. And boundaries you have to draw the boundaries. The mother's not going to like it, but it's not going, even though she might say, "You're killing me," it will not kill her. And in fact, it will help her calm. People who use emotional blackmail are people who have their own scars and their own insecurities. And it's a tool, but it doesn't serve them. It really does not. It looks kind of on the outside like it serves them, but but as you well know, they're never satisfied. It's never enough. It's never enough. Never.
That's so true.
So when something is never enough, then it's not a very good tool, is it? And so it's hard to unwind that kind of thing that probably has been inside of a family dynamic for 25, 35, gosh knows many years, maybe has gone on actually for 3 or 4 generations. But somebody has to say, stop. And that doesn't mean, and I really mean this does not mean that one cuts one's parent off. But there's a difference between cutting off and establishing something that is healthy. And none of these things are easy to do. It's actually, in the end, if you've been running after somebody for half your life, you're in such a, you just do it because you do it in a way. And sometimes it's the adult child that has to really have a big talk with themselves and maybe talk with a therapist or a friend or somebody to say, you know what, I've got to figure out where the lines are here and then stick with them. It would actually, it's better modeling for their children. It's better modeling, and it is healthier for the parent in the end.
Yes. It's like disciplining your children. You tell them not to eat all the candy they want, not because you don't want them to enjoy or you don't want them to smile.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it's not helping them.
No, it's not, because it's never enough. And I think as soon as you kind of know that you're in some sort of cycle where it always feels like it's never enough, you know that it's a toxic thing.
That's a good way of looking at it. My last question, it's this personal thing, not personal to me, but from my perspective, when I look at social media and I see interviews and I see discussions, a lot of people are, I don't know if I want to call it, but there's this a bit of, it strikes me as this in denial attitude of, embrace your age and embrace this, and every age has its beauty. I agree to all of this. Every age has its own perks, blah, blah, blah. But we can't deny that there is beauty to when you were at your prime and your youth. And I think people are not talking about that realistically. They say, like, if you're 50 or 60 or 40 or 70 or 90, don't worry, even if, you don't look as beautiful as you were, or your legs break, or your knees hurt, or you're not as fast as a sprinter and you can't, it's okay, like, enjoy. And I don't like that approach, because I feel it's a bit of an in denial approach. But if we, and please tell me if you disagree, but if we just acknowledge that, when I was 30, I was playing football at my best. I could play literally 2 football games a day. I looked great. My stamina was on another level. I hardly got injured. I was more attractive to the opposite sex. There are a lot of beautiful perks to youth and prime. You look even at these great actors, Denzel in his prime and Brad Pitt in his prime, like, wow, look, they look so great. Of course, I do think there is a gracefulness to aging, but I don't want to also deny and not be realistic that we do have our prime. Maybe not here, if we're just talking about the physique now. Maybe this, by the age of 50 or 60 or whatnot, you are at a very different maturity level if you worked on your mind. Some people never do, but so that's, I wanted to tell you, like, that was just a thought in my head, this in denial, as if like, no, it's okay. Youth, like they downplay the prime to celebrate age. Do you know what I'm trying to?
Well, I think that in a really perfect world, we would embrace every single day as the best one we had, as the best one that ever existed. My mother was very good at that, and because you're right. I mean, sometimes we take for granted when we can do things very well and we're young and youthful and can stay up all night and do everything like that. We don't really, we're not grateful for it. We just assume it. So I think there's two things that come to my mind, and when you ask this question is that very often we're not very grateful for what we have, and we're always thinking that the grass is greener somewhere else. And the other thing that comes to my mind is that we all have regrets. And, you know, what we might have done, could have done, should have done. And so then we want to replay what we could have done, should have done, might have done. So you know, there's nothing specific about aging or about being old that is, I mean, it doesn't match physically. It doesn't hold up at all. Physically, it's not a good era. It can be a very difficult era also intellectually because there's a lot of dementia and things like that. However, it is a time in life where you actually have time. It's the only time when you have time to think, reflect on what you know and what you don't know, which is plenty, I assure you. And it's a time that you can share easily for nothing, for no reason. Be generous for nothing at all, just because you can. So there's beauty in that. It's a different beauty. It's got nothing to do with the physical, not even that much to do with the intellectual, but it does have to do with sort of kind of expanding one's, so to speak, soul.
Quality time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was so nice. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was very fun.